We got Barry Markson in today.
Hey, Gatos.
How's it going, man?
No, it's good.
We've got a lot of stuff to get to, Bear.
Yes, big show. Big show.
We're going to keep our eye on this this crazy story where a 6-month-old was shot. Yeah, 6-month-old. Several times by his father, it looks like. This is in the Surprise area. It's a crazy story. The house is burning down. I think mom got out. The baby has been airlifted to a hospital, but it's a big tragedy out in Surprise. We don't know where this, I don't even want to call him a father, this man is. We don't know necessarily where he is yet, but we're going to keep you up to date. I mean, goodness gracious. A 6-month-old. How does a 6-month-old get shot several times? Several times.
I don't know.
It means that your dad wanted to kill the kid. So he pointed the gun. I'm just guessing. God. Point the gun. And let's shoot the child several times. Because when I first heard it, I was like, maybe this was like a stray bullet or right. I don't know. Because yesterday, what do we have? A 3-year-old shoot himself in the head?
3-year-old, yeah, on Mesa. Yeah.
Access to the gun and shot himself in the head.
All right. We'll keep our eye on the story.
Way to start us off on a positive note here.
Well, I think it's one of the big stories that we got to keep our eye on. And Becky Lynn and our entire news team. We've got the largest radio news team in all of Arizona. So we're on it. Why don't we start off and talk a little bit about education. And so I'm going to read you a quote. They're trying to destroy public education. And so I saw this last night. My wife and I were looking at this. She's a former teacher of 30 years, almost 30 years. And so we're looking at a superintendent's words. And his name is Curtis Finch.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's pretty interesting stuff. What exactly is he saying? Because this is a guy who I guess is finishing the 7th year superintendent of Deer Valley Unified. He's talking about 2 critical education-related issues we're going to get to in a second. But the first thing he says is, listen, there's all this misinformation on these crappy cable news channels. And if you go on social media, all that stuff is eroding the trust in Arizona's public school systems. So one of the examples he gives is critical race theory. We've talked about this. I've talked about this with some politicians. My favorite question I always ask a politician is, okay, well, which school did it happen in?
Exactly.
And they never give you which school, which teacher, what grade level, because it just doesn't happen. So that's one of the first things that Curtis Finch says. He's a veteran superintendent. He works on policy issues with education leaders.
He's been in other districts and other states. He knows how this is supposed to work.
So, Barry, he's looking at the Arizona legislature also and saying the frustration that I'm getting, coming out of these guys, it's just crazy. So why don't we start with the 2 critical education-related issues he's talking about? There's a new general budget for the 24-25 school year that he's worried about. There's also a November ballot proposition involving an increase in school funding. Why don't we start with the misinformation? How do we stop this? Because people just believe what they want to believe. Oh, well, my kid is being taught critical race theory. Really? Do you know what critical race theory is? No. Okay, well, what part of the class was critical race theory? I don't know.
Yeah, it's become where critical race theory is anything you don't like about what's being taught in schools. It's just the catch-all for everything negative that you don't like. And what he's saying, what Superintendent Finch is saying, is that this misinformation is turning the public against public schools
and the voters.
Exactly. And so when bond elections come up every year, things that used to pass in that school district, the 4th largest school district in Arizona, they used to pass regularly all the time. The last ones didn't because now people don't like schools. They think schools are bad. They think schools are teaching our kids bad things. They're doing stuff that doesn't make sense. They don't have good results. And the fact is that's not true. Now, not every school is great. Not every teacher is great.
Of course.
But overall, public schools are doing okay, and they can do better. Of course they can do better. But what's happening is they're defunding our public schools. They're taking less money. They're giving less money to the schools, less money for staff, less money for everything, and then saying, hey, the results aren't very good. And we've been doing this for decades in Arizona, Gatos.
Yeah, and so the voucher situation that came up a few years ago, Arizona became the first state to operate, let's see, ESAs, school districts, charter schools, 3 different separate, I guess, systems of public education. This is where you take your tax dollars with you. And what people say is, well, I want a choice. I want a choice of where to put my child. Yeah. And my argument has always been, Well, parents, you've always had a choice. If you're not happy with your child's public school, you can go to another public school, and those tax dollars will follow the child.
Well, I'll tell you, Arizona's always we've been at the front of this school choice initiative, and a lot of this is good stuff. My sister lives in St. Louis, and they lived in a nice house near the university, and the school district they were in was not a good school district. It just wasn't.
Okay.
But they like public schools and they wanted to do it, but it just wasn't a good school district. And they tried, and they ended up moving to a house in a better school district. But in St. Louis and in Missouri, they don't have the school choice options here, so they couldn't even go to a different public school system. You have to go where your house is, and you're like the old days. You go to the school down the street, and that's it.
That's it.
And if you don't like that school, if that school's no good, you have no options. So I've actually liked that in Arizona. You can go from if you live in Phoenix and you want to go to school in Mesa, you can do that. You have to go apply, and if there's space, they'll let you in. And some of these charter schools, I think, are good. There's specific schools for different kinds of kids. Look, maybe your kid needs more structure. Maybe he needs more old school type teaching. Maybe he's newer and more, needs more touchy-feely stuff. Whatever it may be. It's gotten out of hand, though. In his district, I think he said there's like 40 different charter schools. And what Finch pointed out is it's completely inefficient that charter schools spend twice as much on administrative on the office than they do on the teaching, on teachers. And now you have all these little schools, each have to pay for a building, each have to pay for administration.
Right.
It's a waste of money. It's gotten out of hand.
Here's a little bit from Curtis Finch.
ESAs, charters, was all built around this concept called choice. I have, in my zone, I have 44 charters and dozens of micro schools created by ESAs. It's the school's choice. The school decides whether we want that kid or not. That is not efficient. That is a waste of taxpayer dollars. You have all these extra buildings. You have all these extra administration.
And they're the buildings that you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it isn't efficient. Now, again, having that choice for parents, I'm not against that. I think there's a lot of benefit to come from that.
But is there any other area where you can take state tax dollars directly with us? No.
Well, again, but charter schools are public schools, and that's a little bit of a different thing. Here, we've now added this extra component where you can take your public school dollars and go to a private school.
Correct.
You can go to a private religious school or any kind of private school. That's new, and we were the first state in the country to do that, and that's where money is being sucked out of these districts.
But everybody says that you should be allowed to do that. Well, I'm wondering, are there any other areas where you can take state tax dollars directly with us? The answer is no. The example that I always use is I don't use public transportation.
Yeah.
Okay. But I know this benefits a large group of Arizona citizens.
Well, look at it another way. What if you're saying I don't want the police department where I live to be responsible for my security? I want to hire my own private security. So give me the $10,000 we spend per household on police. Give me the $10,000. I'm going to hire private security.
Right.
I don't like my garbage pickup the way you do it. I want to hire my own.
Or if I don't use public transportation, why can't I take the state tax dollars and
buy a car?
Use it towards Uber?
Right.
No. You can't do it.
No, of course not.
No, of course not. So their argument is hot garbage.
And the real thing from this ESA thing, the voucher program here, is it's they're talking about it's going to benefit people who are in bad school districts and it allows them to have better education options. But the vast majority, Gatos, of the people using these vouchers are in rich areas.
Very wealthy people.
They're the wealthiest zip codes in the country. These were people who were already going to private school. They were paying for private school out of their own pocket or with their own with scholarships. And now the state is literally giving rich people who are paying for their kid to go to private school, giving them money. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Well, we were told that it was going to level the playing field, and children in lower socioeconomic neighborhoods will now have a chance to attend private institutions.
Not happening.
Here's the problem. There's a family, and they have to, what do they receive? $7,000 in tax funds? But where do you come up with the rest of it?
Right.
Because many of these institutions, they cost, what, 15 grand, 10, 15 grand?
15, 20, 25 grand.
So rich kids are, so the poor kids are not going to
By the way, they raised prices when they started getting free money from the state. So all of a sudden the cost to go, the tuition went even higher because parents who used to spend $15,000 to go, and now the state's giving them $7,500, so it's only costing them $7,500. Guess what they did? They bumped the price up $2,500. Why not?
So I like the Curtis Finch, Superintendent, Deer Valley Unified. He's come out strong on this, and he said, here's the deal. Here's the deal. We got the cable news that's destroying the trust in Arizona public school system and across America. We've got this EAS voucher program that doesn't work.
Here's the danger. 90% of the kids in Arizona are in public schools. So if we're not going to properly fund our public schools, if we're not making sure that those kids are getting a really good education, we're screwing all of us, because those are going to be the vast majority of our population in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gatos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.